In this lecture, we're going to learn about errors and warnings in your C++ programs. There are three kinds of errors or warnings you can get. You can get compile time errors, you can get runtime errors, and you can get warnings. But what is really meant by these things? Remember, the ultimate goal of every developer or every C++ developer, in our case here, is to be able to generate a binary executable file from the C++ code. And we have to run the code through the compiler to be able to do that. And one thing you should know is that there is a set of requirements that the compiler enforces on our code for it to be able to compile successfully. And those requirements are the rules really that we have to follow in our C++ program. And if we break those rules, we're going to get problems. And these problems are going to come in the form of compile time errors, runtime errors, or warnings. Let's look at compile time errors in detail. Here we have a simple C++ program that has a few problems. We have forgotten to put the semicolon at the end of our stdcout statement here, and the compiler is going to freak out because of this. If we compile this program, we're going to get a bunch of errors, and the IDE is going to show us this problem. Some IDEs are going to give you different errors. For example, here I was using CodeLite, and it was saying error expected semicolon before return or something like this. So this is a compiler error, and if you have this kind of errors, your program is not going to compile, compilation is going to fail, you're going to get this error, and you're not going to get your binary executable. And when you have this, you basically have to go back and fix this problem, compile again, and when you get rid of these problems, the compilation is going to succeed. This is what a compile time error is. Another thing you can have is a runtime error. This is not going to cause a compile time error. The compilation is going to succeed, but when you run the program, it's not going to do what you intended it to do in the first place. For example, you may want it to print green on some user interface. It's going to print gray or whatever. It's really not going to do what you want. So it's a logical error that you have in your program, and you have to fix it to get rid of this. And another thing you should know is that sometimes these runtime errors can cause your program to fail and terminate immediately, and we say that the program has crashed. We're going to see an example of this in a minute. The last kind of problem you can have in your program is a warning. This is a problem that is not serious enough for the compiler to halt your compilation. Compilation is going to succeed, but this is basically the compiler telling you you are doing something that has some problems, and you should really fix it before it becomes a serious problem. So that's going to be a warning. For example, here you see some compilers can warn you when you divide stuff by 0, and we're going to see how this works. The main message in this lecture is that you may have problems in your program, and they are going to come in three forms. Some are going to be compile time errors, some are going to be runtime errors, some are going to be warnings. We are going to hop over to Visual Studio Code and actually play with this. Okay, here I am in Visual Studio Code. The first thing I'm going to do is to set up the template project we're going to be using in our project here. The project is going to live in this folder, errors and warnings. I am going to copy over the files, and I am going to go in the current project we're going to be working on, and I am going to open this folder in Visual Studio Code. I am going to go to File, Close Folder. I am going to close this one, and I am going to open our new project. I am going to browse to it. The project is this one. I am going to select it and select folder, and it is going to open up in Visual Studio Code. I am going to close this welcome screen and open our main CPP file. We're going to get rid of this const eval thing. This is a C++20 test thing we had in. We don't really need it now. We're going to get there in due time. What we want to see is compile time errors. We're going to put in our stdcout statement, hello world, as we usually do. We're going to end this stdendl, and we're going to remove the semicolon on purpose. And if we try to compile our program like this, we're going to get a compile time error. This is what we want to see. So let's try and build our program. We're going to run the task to build with GCC, and and you see that the build fails. We're going to get a bunch of errors in our terminal. It's going to say in function int main expected a semicolon before return. It's going to try its best to tell you what the problem is, but sometimes these errors can be really confusing. In this case, it is really easy because we introduced this error on purpose. So we're going to fix it in a minute. But before we do that, I want you to see this problems tab. It is where the problems are going to show up in Visual Studio Code. So you should see your problems in here or through the terminal here. Okay, one thing you should know is that when you have a compiler error, compilation is not going to succeed and you're not going to have your binary file, which is what you really want. So to fix this problem, we're going to put in our semicolon here. We're going to build again. We're going to go to terminal, run task. We're going to build with GCC. And this time you're going to see that compilation is going to succeed and we have our program here. We can run it through the terminal here. So we're going to click. The terminal is going to go away, but we can open our own. And if we do dir, we're going to see our files in here and we can run our program. We can say rooster. And if we run, we're going to have hello world. So I hope this really makes it very clear what a compile time error is. So this is one kind of error you can get. The other one is a runtime error. And this comes in the form of things that don't work as you really expected. So let's say we are trying to do some computation in our program. We try to take 7 and divide this by 0, for example. And this is a statement that is a load in C++. So let's try and build this and see what we get, because this is a common scenario where we have runtime errors. We're going to run the task to build with GCC. Okay, if we do this, you see that build finished with warnings. We didn't get a compile time error and our build was successful. So to really prove this, I'm going to go back in our directory. I'm going to do dir. You're going to see that rooster is there. I'm going to remove it. I'm going to say rooster.exe. This is how we remove stuff from the command line. When I do this and do dir again, the executable file should be gone. So let's try and build with this statement in, and you're going to see that we get a warning and not a compile time error like we had here. So we're going to go to terminal, run task. We're going to build with GCC, and you're going to see that we're going to have our executable here, but we had a warning and it's saying that division by 0 was detected in our program and it is a recipe for disaster. So why is it a disaster? Let's try and run this program. So we're going to dir to prove it's here and we're going to run it. If we run it, it's going to say hello world and it's going to end. Let's try and actually use our own terminal to see if we have a better chance of seeing the problem here. So I'm going to reveal in Explorer by clicking on main CPP, and I am going to try and open a terminal window here, PowerShell, that we open ourselves. We've done this before. This shouldn't be new to you by now. So we're going to do dir in here. And we're going to try and run the program and it's going to run. So it's not really giving us a runtime error here because we're not capturing this or trying to use the result of this division here. We're just doing the division, which is a problem. So let's try and capture this. We haven't learned about variables yet, but what we're going to do now is do int value, and we're going to assign the result of this division to this value. And let's try printing the result of dividing a number by 0. So we're going to do stdcout and we're going to say value, and this is how you can print a value out on the console. Okay, now that we have this in, let's try and build. We're going to run task and build with GCC. We're going to get the same warning, but if we try to run the program, we're not going to get what we expect. Let's run rooster.exe. We expect it to say hello world and print the value, but you see that it's really struggling to print the value and it gave up and ended immediately. So this is one example of a runtime error that you can face in your program. There are many other kinds that we're going to see as we progress in the course. Here, we are just trying to raise your awareness on these problems so that you can know how to fix them when they come up. Okay, so this is all I can share with you now about runtime errors. We also had a chance to see that this is also going to give you a warning. And Visual Studio Code here is also helping out, telling us that we may have a problem. It's turning the main CPP file yellow, and it's saying that there is one problem in this file. And if you go here, you're going to see that we have a warning here. Okay, so this is one way you have to see this. So this is not recommended to do, so we're going to comment this out. Okay, this is really all I had to share in this lecture. We had a chance to look at compile time errors. We also had a chance to look at warnings and runtime errors using this example. If you get a warning, it is a message the compiler is giving you that you should really look it up and fix the problem before it becomes more serious. Compile time errors are going to cause your compilation to fail, and that's a really good thing because the compiler is going to stop you from generating a binary that doesn't really do what you expect it to do. So that's a good thing. But sometimes the compiler wants to give you a compile error and you have a chance to run into a runtime error, and that's really bad. So be careful about these things, and when you have problems, Visual Studio Code is going to show you the problem in Terminal or in this Problems tab, and you're going to be able to fix it up. We're going to stop here in this lecture. In the next one, we're going to learn a little more about statements and functions. Go ahead and finish up here and meet me there.